Let me ask you something real. Have you ever said just a few words to a woman and watched her entire energy shift instantly? Her eyes light up. Her body leans in. The space between you feels electric. Like suddenly, you're the only man in the room. I'll never forget the night I was at a bar, sitting across from a woman who looked completely uninterested. Beautiful, intelligent, but drifting. And I could feel it. That slow fade we've all felt before. Until I said one thing, just one subtle phrase, and everything changed. She turned toward me, locked in, stayed close for 3 hours like she didn't want the moment to end. What did I say? That's exactly what you're going to get in this video. You're about to discover 7 phrases younger women love to hear from men, even though they'll never admit it. These aren't pickup lines. They're not tricks. They're signals. Signals that tell her, you see what others miss. You hear what others ignore. You speak to the part of her that's never been touched with words. And when that happens, she doesn't just feel intrigued. She feels recognized. Today, you'll learn exactly how to trigger that feeling, word for word. These 7 phrases are forged in authenticity, precision, and presence. No fluff, no performance, just powerful connection she can't unfeel. Let's begin. Praise number 1. I noticed that about you. She's used to being looked at, but almost never truly seen. She's surrounded by voices that comment on her beauty, but rarely does someone speak to the details she didn't even know were visible. That's where this phrase unlocks something powerful. I noticed that about you. Simple words, but when used right, they stop her world for a second, because it means you've been watching her differently. Not like everyone else, but like someone who sees beyond the mask. I remember a woman who used to twist her hair when she was lost in thought. Nobody else seemed to catch it. But one day, in the middle of a quiet conversation, I said, "You always twist your hair when you're thinking hard about something. I noticed that about you." She froze, then smiled, slowly, like I just touched something sacred. No one's ever noticed that before. That's the moment I became unforgettable. Because here's the truth. Younger women are still shaping who they are, still figuring out their identity. So when you reflect back something real, something specific, especially something tied to their values, passions, or subtle behaviors, you're telling her, you matter. I see what makes you different. Not in the way everyone else sees her, but in the way she hopes someone, someday, will. It could be anything. The way her energy shifts when she talks about animals, how she checks everyone has food before eating, how her eyes move when she's trying to hide excitement. But it has to be real, genuine, laser-focused. Because when it is, it lands like a soft explosion, quiet but permanent. That one phrase whispers, "You're not invisible. Your details matter to me." And in a world where attention is cheap, that kind of presence makes you unforgettable. Phrase number 2, you just shifted my perspective. She's heard compliments. She's been called beautiful. She's been admired for her smile, her energy, her presence. But rarely has she been credited for changing someone's mind. That's what makes this phrase dangerous. In the best way, you just shifted my perspective. Because now it's not just that you're listening, you're letting her reshape the way you see the world. And for a younger woman who's used to being underestimated, dismissed, or politely nodded at, this hits like lightning. Let me show you what I mean. I once spoke with a woman about a book we'd both read. She offered a take I hadn't considered. And instead of correcting her or defending my view, I paused, genuinely, and said, "You just shifted how I see that. I hadn't thought of it that way until now." She stopped, smiled slowly, and her entire posture changed. Why? Because for the first time, she wasn't just being listened to. She was being influential. She had moved something inside me, and I wasn't afraid to say it. That's the key to this phrase. You're not faking agreement. You're being strong enough to grow from her insight and letting her know it. That tells her, you're not just attractive, you're impactful. Try saying, that made me pause. I'm going to think about it differently now. You actually just made me rethink something I've believed for a long time. I never saw it like that until you said it. Because when you say this sincerely, she doesn't just feel smart, she feels powerful. And that kind of recognition stays in her bones long after the conversation ends. Phrase number 3. The way you handled that says a lot about you. She's tired of empty praise, of being told she's so pretty or so sweet. She's heard it all. What she rarely hears is acknowledgement of how she moves through the fire. And that's why this phrase slices through the noise like a blade. The way you handled that says a lot about you. Because now, you're not admiring how she looks. You're admiring who she became under pressure. And that makes her feel seen as a force. I was out once with a woman who calmly shut down a pushy guy in public. She didn't cause a scene. She didn't shrink back. She was assertive, clear, powerful, without ever losing her center. When we walked away, I turned to her and said, "The way you handled that, it says a lot about you." She looked at me with a pause, like something landed deep. Then she said, "No one's ever noticed that, let alone said something." That's the power of this phrase. You're not just complimenting her actions, you're revealing the identity behind them. Try this when she sets a boundary without drama, handles conflict with calm control, makes a decision others avoid, protects someone without looking for credit. Say, "The way you handled that, it showed me exactly who you are. You didn't flinch. That says everything. You moved through that like someone who knows her worth." You're not just giving respect. You're making her feel like a woman whose choices carry weight. And in a world that often overlooks her power, you just became the only one who didn't. Phrase number 4. I haven't felt a conversation flow like this in a long time. In a world full of split attention and surface talk, she's grown used to conversations that feel more like interviews than connection. She's used to guys staring at their phones or looking around for someone better. But when you drop this phrase, everything pauses. I haven't felt a conversation flow like this in a long time. Not, "You're fun to talk to." Not, "This is cool." But something deeper. Something that tells her, you're not rushing, because this moment matters. You're anchoring the energy you've created together. You're telling her, this isn't just small talk. Something real is happening here. I remember a night where the words just kept flowing. We weren't talking about anything profound, but something about the rhythm, the ease, the silence between laughs. It felt different. And when I said, "I haven't had a conversation like this in a long time," she leaned in, physically and emotionally, because I had just named the feeling she couldn't explain. This phrase works because it signals presence. It says, "You have my full focus, right now." And that's something she hasn't felt in a while. Try saying, "It feels rare to connect like this. I didn't expect this to be so easy and real. I forgot how good a conversation could feel, until now." This phrase isn't about flattery. It's about immersion. It's about letting her know that this moment matters. And when she feels that, she doesn't want it to end. Phrase number 5. Your drive is rare, and it's powerful. You know what's crazy? She's had to downplay her dreams just to keep people comfortable. She's been told she's too intense, too focused, or too unrealistic. She's been told to wait, to shrink, to stay safe. But then she meets you, and you drop the phrase that rewires everything. Your drive is rare, and it's powerful. You're not praising her for being cute. You're not offering her a pat on the head for trying. You're speaking to the fire she's been forced to tame. And when you do that, she lights up. I remember talking with a woman who was launching her own brand while working full-time. She told me about the sacrifices, the setbacks, the late nights. I didn't offer advice. I didn't interrupt. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "The way you're building something from scratch, it's rare, and it's powerful. I respect the hell out of that." She didn't just smile. She softened, because for the first time, her ambition wasn't intimidating someone. It was being honored. That's what this phrase does. It tells her, "I see your vision, and I'm not afraid of it." More than that, I believe in it. Try variations like, "The way you move toward your goals, it's intense in the best way." There's nothing more attractive than a woman who's crystal clear on what she's building. That kind of focus, it's magnetic. This isn't just a compliment, it's alignment. And that makes her see you as someone who belongs in her future. Phrase number 6, what you said shifted something in me. There's one thing more powerful than praise, more powerful than charm, confidence, or even desire. It's this, telling her she changed something in you, that her words didn't just land, they lingered, they moved something. That's why this phrase hits like lightning. What you said shifted something in me. She's used to being the one who's influenced. She's used to guys trying to impress her, teach her, convince her. But when you flip the script, when you tell her that she made you think differently, you become something she didn't expect. Receptive, awake, deeply grounded. I remember a conversation I had with a woman who talked about how she protects her energy in friendships. It wasn't dramatic, just real. She said something about emotional boundaries that hit me. A few days later, I messaged her and said, "What you said about boundaries, it stuck. It made me rethink how I manage my own space. You shifted something in me." Her reply? "That might be the most meaningful thing anyone's ever said to me, because this phrase tells her, you didn't just speak, you mattered." Try saying, "That thing you said has been echoing in my mind. You made me see something I'd never seen that way before." Since our talk, I've actually changed how I approach that. This isn't about being agreeable. It's about being real. Letting her know, your perspective didn't bounce off me. It landed. It grew. And for a woman, especially a younger woman, who's often dismissed or talked over, that kind of validation changes everything. She doesn't just feel attractive, she feels respected. And more than that, she feels memorable. Phrase number 7, being around you feels different. There's something she craves more than attention. It's effect. The quiet power of knowing she changed the atmosphere just by walking in. And when you say this phrase, being around you feels different, you're confirming something she's always hoped was true, but never quite believed anyone could articulate. Because now, you're not complimenting her looks. You're not admiring her words. You're revealing her energy. You're telling her, you don't just exist, you shift something in people. I remember the first time I used this. We weren't in deep conversation. We weren't talking about love or life or meaning. We were just laughing. And in the middle of it, I said, "You know what? Being around you feels different, like the air moves differently when you're here." She went silent, then softly smiled. And in that moment, I knew. She had never heard that before. Because here's the secret. Every woman wonders if she has a kind of presence that leaves echoes behind her. And this phrase tells her, yes, you do. I feel it. Say it when the vibe shifts, when you notice the silence feels warmer, when she walks in and the moment subtly sharpens. That's when you drop it. Try variations like, you bring a stillness with you. It's kind of hypnotic. I can't explain it, but your energy, it lingers. When you're here, the whole room feels softer somehow. This phrase works because it's not about logic. It bypasses thought. It enters her nervous system. And when a woman feels like she doesn't just take up space, she transforms it. You've just made her feel unforgettable. These weren't just phrases. They were keys to her thoughts, to her defenses, to her desire to be seen and remembered. You didn't just hear her, you felt her. And now she'll feel you, long after the words fade. If something in you shifted, subscribe to the Stoic architect, because this isn't about just saying the right thing. It's about becoming the one she never forgets.